Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to our weekly Mandalorian discussion / reviews. I'm Chris, joined with George, and we're going to be talking about Chapter 10, The Passenger. This was the newly released episode today, and I want to say we have a lot to talk about it. We'll fill a show, we'll talk about it, but we probably won't have as much to talk about this one as the first one. So as always, we want to hear you, and hopefully we have a few more people coming in a minute. So we want to hear your thoughts on this, get a discussion going. For all things Mandalorian and Star Wars in this one, we're going to be just dissecting this whole entire episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, we'll get to the episode itself. It obviously wasn't as long as last week, and we certainly don't think our episode is going to be an hour tonight too. So that being said, as usual, the best way to find out what we're doing is finding us on social media. If you do enjoy The Mandalorian, comment your thoughts, like, share it. We've got some really cool things coming up for season 2. We're not going to unveil them just yet, but we've got a couple of things we're working on. So we're hoping to have quite an interesting, discussion piece, for the end of season 2 as a kind of hint into what we've got planned. So there is that. And of course, the best way to find out what we're doing is by finding us on Facebook at Cinema Savvy and Twitter at Cinema_Savvy. And we have a quick link in the description for our TeePublic store. Now, that being said, I feel like I had something else to say, which has already slipped my mind. So it clearly wasn't that important. No, it has. So, guys, if you haven't seen social media posts yesterday, Battle of the Brackets is back this Sunday. So if you're watching live on Friday, 2 days from now, 8 p.m. in the evening GMT, 12 p.m. PT, and 5 p.m. 3 p.m. ET, because the American clocks went back. If you watched last week, you'll know that we just sat there struggling with all the time zones. It's all good. We're back to normal. So join us this Sunday night. We're doing Best Double Act, and tomorrow you're going to be able to see the bracket, who's fighting. So it's going to be a very interesting one. So pitching that for Sunday. And if you never watched Battle of the Brackets, do go on our channel and watch it. And a few Star Wars ones. There's a couple of Star Wars ones. Granted, it's from 3 years ago. So that being said, Mandalorian Chapter 10, The Passenger. So let's jump straight in. So guys, if you've not watched this before, we don't do an A. We try not to do an A to Z, but we do take the key important parts. And Carl's already filled it. Fit episode already? Yeah. Absolutely. So this is the first thing. I am okay with this purely. I mean, I'm okay with this now is a far better word, actually. I don't mind filler. It's the placement of filler that is my issue. Last season was very difficult because I loved the first 3 episodes. Episode 4 was that nice, we're getting away for an episode, but the threat of the bounty hunters is still looming, so we're going to need to address them. And then 5 and 6 is where it didn't work for me. I think you could have... Episode 6 would have been fine by itself. If it was episode 2 today, it would have been fine. But it was the placement of the fillers when you need the plot. Whereas today, I don't know, we're going to have different... We've kind of discussed this off chat very briefly, but I'm okay with today because I know it's episode 2. It's kind of like tick out the way. I hope that was it. That's my opening gallon into it. I mean, you did see it before me. You did message me, give me a heads up that this isn't as good as last week straight away.
And you weren't on it. Like I messaged you straight away, and there was no reply. I was like, "Oh, he's on media blackout." Like I know what he's doing. He hasn't seen the episode yet, but you did get back to me as soon as you did watch it. First and foremost, like we're 2 weeks now, we both agree on both of the episodes so far. I'm going to slightly disagree with you on this one, though. I'm more with Carl on this one. He says, I'm slowly getting frustrated as it just doesn't feel like the story is moving forward, like, at all. Therein lies the problem, because for me, The Mandalorian, I'm having this, like, conflict with myself as to what The Mandalorian is. On the one hand, I like it because it's sort of like each week is a little mini adventure that Mando and Baby Yoda go on. They find themselves in a tough situation and they either get out of it, or it's a 2-parter and they get out of it in the second one and they're on to another adventure. And that's great. And I kind of like that, but it is dealing with this grander narrative. We saw it at the end of season 1 where we had Moff Gideon show up. Cara Dune, this intrigue, you need to go and find and return it to his kind, basically, Baby Yoda. So right there, we always said that season 1 was this establishing the characters, which I actually think it did a very good job of. It won a lot of people over, but I wanted the plot to kick in with season 2, and there's plenty of plot to do it in. Episodes like this frustrate me now. Because, I mean, we don't know how it's going to fit in. There was a character that features in this, a certain droid voiced by, is it Richard Ayoade?
Yeah.
Which unfortunately made me now have to consider episode 6 from season 1 canon because he was in that one. So I can't say that this one won't play into a greater whole or have any impact because we haven't seen the rest of the series. It could link very much into the next episode or characters that show up in the next one. But it frustrates me because there's only 8 episodes. It's not an exhaustive amount of episodes as series go. Filler episodes, I would expect in a 20-plus episode season of a TV show. You'll get plenty of filler episodes in the season like that. At 8 episodes, kind of frustrates me. I'm like, either cut it back to 6, be economic with your storytelling. Imagine how far we could have propelled this narrative if we didn't waste an episode. You know, I think it could be a much further point than it actually is. I don't hate this episode. I just thought it was fine. It is the very definition of average. I guess that's sort of like my initial opinions on the episode.
Yeah, that's a good place to start because we kind of spoke briefly and I kind of said to you that of the 3 fillers, I think most people do comment as well. Of the 3 fillers, I don't count 4 as filler because it sets up Gina Carano's character. Yep. You learn a bit more about the Mandalorian, his side of things, how it works, and ultimately it sets up what's for them to come back to you later. That he wants that life, but he can't have it. So I don't count 4 as filler. I know some people do, which is fine. But 5, 6, and this, on paper, there's a broader story being told that none of us knew where it's heading. Only Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni probably know right now where that story is heading. Is it 3 seasons? Is it one story at 24 chapters? We don't know yet. And this is what I kind of said to you earlier, that it was really difficult in season 1. And coming into season 2 was this really interesting thing. Like, oh, are they going to reset the chapter names and be something different? Or is it going to continue? So I was very excited by the chapter 9 reveal, honestly. I don't know why I'm so excited, but I was. And it kind of has had this weird thing on me today where had this have reset into chapter 2, I think I'd be distraught. I know this is ridiculous because it's like, oh my God, he's complaining about a number. But because
it's when you were preparing to do the thumbnails for this show and you were ready, is it chapter 9? Is it chapter 1? Like, I don't know what it is. What is it? And then, it is a continuation.
And that's the thing. And I think obviously we don't know if it's 3 seasons, 4 seasons, 5. I hope it's now they've said it's going to be chapter, X, Y, Z. Keep it 3 seasons. But if there's a a bigger picture, then I don't mind the odd filler being placed across. But I can't not have that because I can have it. I need to see what's next, and that's my issue. If episode 3, this passenger could be very important, so it might be okay. We had a very weird introduction to Toad from X-Men 1. And there were some very weird things, which we'll get to later on. Things that I never thought I'd see in Star Wars. It was okay. I think for filler, it was put together well. Sort of generalized before we go into the whole thing. As usual, it looked beautiful. Specifically one scene, which looks far too good to be TV. Again, it's what we spoke about at the climax last week. It's this looks better than most films I've seen. This looks better than a fair few amount of Star Wars films I've seen. And we'll get into the chase shortly, but I did not anticipate seeing that on a TV screen at home. That being said, I didn't expect it. I mean, I want to say it was horror, but it wasn't. This is, of course, directed by Peyton Reed, who we all know from Ant-Man 1 and 2. There is a horrible reference in that, which the first thing I messaged you was, I am absolutely furious there is a giant ant in this.
And
I don't know why
Ant-Man is in this episode.
And then it came up directed by Peyton Reed, and I just sat there like, I'm okay with it now.
We're slowly completing the collection, aren't we? We've had Favreau with 2 references to Iron Man. We now have Peyton Reed with a reference to Ant-Man. Are they going to bring in? They're going to bring in more MCU directors, and we're going to get links to all these.
Bryce Dallas Howard, the ATST in season 1, very much like Jurassic Park as well, and she's in Jurassic World. So, I hate the concept. I was just sat like, why is there a giant ant? And then I'm sitting, because I love Ant-Man. I know I've got a massive soft spot for that film and the second one as well. I just kind of like did this really weird smile, you kind of like, you get it. If I hadn't have stayed for the credits, I wouldn't have got it, and I'd have been sit here ranting like a madman, saying, "Why?"
Isn't that just the Star Wars fan in us, though? Like, we can accept a galaxy with all weird and wonderful aliens, but an ant creature, oh hell no, that doesn't belong in Star Wars. What's that doing in the cantina bar again?
And not to heart, because I did enjoy this episode. I thought it was fine. It's what you said. It was fine. It was average. It's better than some. It's not at the peak of the Mandalorian, but it was fine to do something else with. And one thing that really threw me was I like my medium rare. I was like, I did not anticipate a Miller and Carter menu in the Star Wars. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it at all. But it was very strange. But again, I think this is a really good actually place just to jump into Tatooine, because I think we had a really cool scene at the start where we I kind of spoke last week saying, "Oh, we're going to get Boba Fett come back." I think this is a really big thing. Didn't already know, guys, but doing spoilers. Sorry if you've not paid it 10 minutes and think why they've ruined it. Yeah, so I kind of spoke last week, said, "Oh, what's going to happen in episode 2? Are they going to stay on Tatooine, or is Boba going to reveal himself, or is it going to be this big mystery that's going to come on down in the later episodes or season 3?" Now, there has been a report which I've not fully read into today that indicates there is talks of a Boba Fett TV series being filmed in LA as of next week. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, how can you have 1 week's notice? The Mandalorian season 1 had 1 week's notice. Suddenly, there was rumors of a Star Wars series, and it was Lucasfilm announced it the next week. So, I'm not going to dismiss it. I'm not going to sit here and say it's happening. I'm curious at the most minimal entry of the word curious, because I'm not interested in Boba Fett. I think he's a dreadfully rated character. I like what they did with him in Clone Wars. Do I see him having a TV series? Not right now, no. And if that means his big reveal last week was to spin off a series, obviously we'll know an answer to this in maybe a year or something. But that's a really big thing that we stayed on Tatooine, but it was more of a let's have a cool action segment, because it was really well done. I love the jetpack. Yeah. That was quite funny. Seeing the fights, when Baby Yoda went flying, everyone could feel the pain.
Yeah.
I think what's that character in Toy Story? It's the aliens. When the aliens get thrown across the room, you get the little bounce noise. I was expecting something like that. But it was a nice start, and then it's back to the cantina, which I'm going to let you take over with, because you've got very strong feelings again.
Yeah, so I agree with you. The intro was great. It's funny how my paternal instinct always kicks in when Baby Yoda's in peril, because it's a real thing. When he went flying off that speeder bike, I was I mean, he's a tough one, that Baby Yoda. He was fine. He's been punched in the head twice by a stormtrooper. He's gone flying over the handlebars of a speeder bike. He's fine. That was great. Enjoyed that stuff. It was actually. This episode could have very easily picked up on a different planet. It didn't have to stay on Tatooine, but I like that we see his return journey from that, made it flow more. But yeah, the cantina bar where we're greeted with SNL lady again, who has a name. The actress has a name. I don't know the name of the actress, but she's really kind of outstaying her welcome in this series. I'm not going to lie. The way she talks, it's too SNL. It's too American. It feels out of place in Star Wars from how people talk. Even in the greater context of Mandalorian, when we cut to we had a discussion about this off air. The sheer amount of SNL characters, which honest trailers really kind of made aware to us just how many there are in there. It kind of, there's always that disconnect. It takes me out of the universe and makes me feel like I'm watching a TV show with this new celebrity guest cameo who's in. The ant creature was weird. I just thought, I just chalked it up to it's another alien race that we haven't seen, and it's something new. I always complain that we don't get stuff new, so we did get some new stuff in this episode, but we did get the cantina bar, which is definitely not new. And as soon as we walked into that bar and I saw that new robot barman and we saw the booth, I thought, here we go. Where let's just shrink that universe down even more, shall we? With this huge, expansive galaxy where we get new stuff. We get toad people and we get ant people, but we also get that cantina bar. I know I keep harping on it, but we're in season 2 now. You can do new things. You don't need to get the old Star Wars fans on board. If we're watching season 2, we're already in it. We like these new characters. Show me new things. I don't know. It's a small thing anyway, but we don't spend loads of time there, and it's nowhere near as on the nose as it was in season 1, where you had discount Han Solo in exactly the same pose and exactly the same booth. That really irritated me in season 1.
I'm going to bring this up as well, by Carl. Very convenient, just playing cards with the one person who could help the Mando. This is things I don't like. Now, I'm pretty easy with stuff. It's quite easy to entertain me. When it's that American humor again, and I'm sorry to any Americans that are offended. I don't mean this, because I actually love SNL. I watch a lot of SNL, more than modern stuff, so I don't know a lot of the older people from the noughties and stuff. But when it's here's this joke, oh, you need something, give him 500. Oh, look, he actually knows the exact location of the Mandalorian. He said it 1 minute ago. It's it's Ant-Man. It's, of course, the ant you were playing with the new. Exactly where it was, and then she knows an informant that she met 30 seconds before, because when they meet the hangout I met her 10 minutes ago as well, and it strikes as that strange humor. And I'm not saying American humor, actually. It's probably more, it's like, I don't even want to say Earth humor because it's not funny, but it's something that, as you said, it doesn't feel like Star Wars. I feel like I'm harping on it so much, but it can take you out of an episode. That is the issue with it. I don't think Mandalorian's had too many mega cameos where, Dave Filoni, that's the director cameo, like that might take you out of it, but you can get away with that because every director gets a cameo in the Star Wars films and stuff. But then it just felt strange with some choices in this, and I don't know.
It's also really convenient as well, just in terms of the narrative. It's what are the odds that this one person I'm playing this game with can help you out? It's so you also do have that American humor, but it's also just really convenient, and it doesn't feel true to how it would turn out. Just have him fly and go to another planet and bump into this person who needs passage. That's what you needed to do. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So that was Tatooine. We got introduced to the lady, the I'm just going to call it.
Oh, have we lost George? This happens sometimes. Hopefully he comes back on in a second.
Sorry. That was
there we go.
Sorry. The toad lady got to the Wi-Fi. I was just saying, I know we're jumping in, but it was a strange character because I feel like we've seen that species before. I was like, okay, we're going to get one introduced. And then you said this to me, the language stuff was a bit weird, and Tusken Raiders, we kind of were okay with it. It's done something new with them. This was just weird.
It reminded me of Solo. It reminded me when Han Solo is talking Wookiee, and it's the first time that he's ever done that before, and he never does it since. There's always that weird sort of like language disconnect where Chewie can clearly understand what Han's saying, but can't speak English. He speaks Wookiee, but they understand what he's saying, and you just go along with it because that was in the original film, and it's just established what it is. It's that easy humor. It's trying to be funny, and it's more cringe-inducing. And I'm just like, just please move on to the next scene.
And speaking of moving on, Carl, I don't mean to moan about the episodes. My friend, neither do we. Like I said, last week we had such a blast talking this. Fair few episodes last season we had a blast, but let's move on to maybe one of the best crafted scenes in TV history. Crafted's the wrong word. Best looking scenes in TV, because we had an X-Wing chase with the Razor Crests on TV budget that looked as good as films. That's from the ships to the CG to the environment to the clouds to everything. I was not when the X-Wings were in the trailer, I was expecting like look, they're sort of going up side by side. They're all going to shoot like a ship together and then they'll fly off. And that's like your CGI heavy cameo, like, haha, the X-Wings are in. And they did it last season and I was fine with it. This season, I loved it. I just sat like, this is great. This is really good fun. And the Razor Crest itself, because it's this massive lump that we've not really seen in a design like it, to see it functioning like in a strafing, because it does make you think like, how is a ship like that going to outrun X-Wings or outmaneuver stuff because of its sort of like size? And it was a really well directed chase, I thought. And to be fair to Peyton Reed, again, I've not seen much bar Ant-Man. The action scenes in Ant-Man were surprisingly excellent. Really, I know Edgar Wright had a very big hand on the first one. A lot of it you could tell was Edgar Wright, but this when I'm trying to think of comparisons for the sake of this, and more so when Ant-Man and Wasp are sort of fighting with one another, or like right small and flying around, I kind of realized that this guy's done chases, granted to a smaller scale, but I didn't expect X-Wings episode 2. When we know it's filler, we didn't know it's filler at this point. You expect, it to be the low budget episode, but this still felt mega.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. And I like the tension building before the actual chase as well, where the two of the X-Wings pull up side by side of the Razor Crest and they're saying, like, identify yourself. And we've seen that from an opposite angle before. It always seems like a bad guy thing to do. And I think, obviously, we care about Mando and the child and, like, the predicament they're in. But it's interesting seeing the rebellion do that. The good guys, this new... what's this new order essentially that they've New Republic, thank you. We always usually see TIE fighters doing that, like identify yourself. We see it in Rogue One and other things such as that, but it's also adding to the world building as well, because we're seeing the good guys and we know they're just doing a job, but how they come at it, they're going to shoot him down if he doesn't check in. And yeah, you're right, the CGI here, everything how it was staged, they kind of do something similar from episode 7, and I can't believe I'm offering a positive comparison here to episode 7 Force Awakens, where Rey kills the engines and they stall it, and he free falls and then blasts back up. And yeah, it looked, I mean, they've got the power of Disney behind it, and the effects work, and it's always going to look great, but you can definitely see they've upped the ante with these 2 episodes in terms of the on-screen action and what they can do, and it looks fantastic. It was that moment where they suddenly lock S-foils in attack position and they go into the X-Wings. You're like, oh, okay.
What you kind of said, it's the perspective of it that, when X-foils come out normally, they'll say it. It's this glaring moment, like we're about to get a really cool scene, X-Wings, attack position, and it's the point of view being of Mando looking out his window, and you just see these like X-foils, and I just thought that was a really neat way to do it, because it's all about perspective Mandalorian, because he is the hero, we are aligning with him, but in the state of the galaxy, he's a bounty hunter. Obviously, we get to in the episode where they start talking about his track record and some things we may find out later on in the season, but it was a really cool scene, and I love the sort of sarcastic "May the Force be with you" stuff, because it's what he kind of says in season 1, like the New Republic's a joke, and then he just kind of says that for the sake of it. And I think it was meant to be funny. I did kind of laugh a bit, because it was that every Star Wars film ever, "May the Force be with you," and it's when you reach this point of Star Wars where there's one Jedi in the galaxy, brackets not including Palpatine being alive. It's just that taking the piss, because they're very aware of it, and it is a funny thing. But off the back of that, I think obviously he basically gets I'm not saying the finale, but when the ship crashes, that's when we knew it was filler. I think the moment the ship landed and all the power's gone, I was like, okay, here we go, let's see. Because obviously you'd give me a heads up, I was like, okay, this is going to be the moment in which it becomes what it does. And we've got some incredible Baby Yoda scenes. Granted, it is that kind of there's always an episode with like dogs or like animals. It's like, here's the episode where they eat everything. This one was rather funny. I don't know if it was like the shot choices. Again, Peyton Reed's done his comedy. The shot of inside the tank, just seeing Baby Yoda's face and everything. Again, he's great. You don't need to sell Baby Yoda to anyone, because we're all spending our money on him anyway. So it's just one of them where he was a delight. But we get to the main crux of it, which is we get introduced to some Ralph McQuarrie concept art turned live action. Now, I'm just going to go straight into, so it's in the cave, and you kind of know something's going to happen because nothing has happened, and Baby Yoda's hungry, and you just see this hundreds of like eggs, and okay, something's going to go wrong here, and then he just eats one, and it was revolting to look at. I think I felt uncomfortable watching it, which is great, because that's the point of it. He's like an innocent baby, and then it turned into Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and that's a compliment as well. Or like, because obviously I've been rewatching the Harry Potter films recently, 100, 200 eggs hatch by, I mean, there is an official name, so they're called the Krykna. I think I pronounced that right or wrong, I don't know. But essentially, I've got a photo here on my computer, which I should actually have uploaded. It was unused Ralph McQuarrie concept art from 1980. He had a cave full of eggs, the exact same, and he had the kind of spider type things. So it's really cool. I know that Rebels did it a lot. The sequel trilogy drew certain inspirations from unused McQuarrie stuff, like the Emperor's Throne, which was a really cool set piece, unfortunately, in the film. So there's some things, like the Crash Death Star. There was always things which they've had in obviously the archives, they call it, don't they? And it always adds something more when they delve into that, because not because it feels like Star Wars, because it was made for that Star Wars then. When Lucas went into the prequels, he had these designs. He knew how he wanted the world to look. It was shiny, it was new, it was this. But whereas Ralph McQuarrie is the guy that basically helped get Star Wars funded, he helped design the world. Maybe Lucas the most, then Ralph McQuarrie. The two of them together to bring those images to life are essential. And I just thought it was really nice to get that. And again, not to hate on Rebels, because I adore Rebels. They did a lot of this was concept art we've not done before, and that's cool. You gave it a new platform, but when you get it live action, that's when, to me, the stakes are a bit different, and it's that natural thing that it's because you've got actors on set acting, obviously not real spiders, but it's the environment, it's being able to see it on this budget, and this is where my predicament comes in with it being filler, because filler obviously doesn't take you to places in terms of the overarching story, but then it allows us to have an insight into other things in the galaxy that we might have the time for, which is lost animated stuff. And it's about getting that balance right. So this is why this episode is difficult for me, because I need to see the next few to see overall what I think, because I liked seeing these new creatures. We hadn't, how boring would it have been if it was a cave full of womp rats or wompers or stuff we've seen so many times over and over, whereas it wasn't. It was something new. And, granted, we know it's not a major threat because it's episode 2. And, Baby Yoda's not going to die. I thought maybe the weird toad thing was. I'm still struggling with that. The bath hot tub image is not going to leave my mind. That was just weird for Star Wars. Very weird. I'm trying to think of the weirdest Star Wars moments.
There's a few.
You got the Emperor on the meat grinder from Rocky. You got the ice tub bath here. Weird Natalie Portman's wig. There's so many odd things we've seen in Star Wars over the years, and this was like, okay, alien in a hot tub. Like, yeah, that
could be a fun top 10 list we could do at some point. Top 10 weirdest Star Wars moments. I'm sure we could throw a list together of it. Yeah, so you talked about like the spiders being something new, and they are. Now, I wasn't aware of it being concept art from all the way back in Empire Strikes Back. You told me that after I saw the episode. I actually didn't mind the spiders. I thought they were good. It's, as you mentioned, it's something new, and that's what I'm craving with Star Wars. But that's really cool that they did go back and they're utilizing it well, I think, that old concept art. And they're not doing it like week to week or all the time or anything like that. They're picking and choosing. I thought that was a really nice nod. Again, those nods and callbacks that only people who are really in the know of the behind the scenes and everything that was born out of Star Wars back when it was first made would know. So, I didn't know that, for example. I thought that was really cool. We did go back to another snowy planet. And I was like, look, I get it. It must be really difficult to think of new terrain, something different. But I was like, it could have been a cave full of Wampas. This could have been Hoth for all I know. We had Tatooine in the first, episode and a half. We've got another icy planet in this, but it was fine that they didn't outstay their welcome there. It was like the last half of the episode and it was fine. Going to talk about Baby Yoda, though, you said this is, he was really funny. It was funny, but I also thought it was terrifying. So because they give so much is riding on this tank full of eggs. This is, this poor mother's eggs, and it's like the last of a kind. It's the last of her line, and she needs to keep them safe. And they're fertilized eggs, and she's trying to incubate them. So every one that Baby Yoda is eating is a life that is ending. And I'm like, oh my God, baby, stop. Like, why are you doing this? Like, we all harp on Anakin for killing so many younglings. I think that Baby Yoda surpassed that in this episode. He is terrifying. And not only this poor little toad lady's eggs, but the spider's eggs as well. And Carl, I want to bring up a comment from earlier. Carl says, definitely alien vibes. That was the first thing that I thought of. Even the way the eggs looked, their position, I think the way that it opens, sort of like this leaf kind of thing. Yeah. Even, and then I saw like the dead spider kind of thing with its legs curled around. I was like, it's like a little mini face hugger that gets snagged on. And the next action sequence, like, it's fine. We get these swarms of them. We get little ones, not so little ones, the giant one, and they all look great. Like, the CGI is fantastic on them. I did think it was weird how Mando only used his flamethrower twice. It seemed very effective when he was using it. He was using his pistol and pot shot him one by one, when I thought that I watched the Jeremy Johns review earlier, and he pretty much voiced what I was thinking. He says, if this was a level in a video game and I was faced with these, I would immediately equip the flamethrower. That instinctively, that would be the first thing that I would do. And so I was kind of shouting at the screen, like, why not use the flamethrower? Yeah. He does, but he uses it sparingly. The Toad Lady was weird. I want to talk about the Toad Lady again. Like, I always say, like, give me something new in Star Wars. I want to see something new, and then they throw the Toad Lady at me. I'm like, oh, okay, no, I don't want something new. Take it away. Show me something I've seen. Give me Banthas again. It was weird. Felt very Disney. Felt very child. It didn't seem like it. It's like a whole galaxy full of aliens, but there's just some certain aliens where you just know if George Lucas was walking down the line of all the concept art, when he's like, this one, not that one, and he knows in his mind what would work visually in it. It feels like we're in desperate need of a George Lucas here to just go down the line of concept arts and just throw some out that don't work. The hot tub was strange. the way that when it's running out of the cave, anatomically probably works, but when we've seen it walking on two legs for the entire episode and then we see it galloping like a toad and literally frog leaping, that was very strange. I have mixed things on this episode. It's fine, and I think both Carl and Brian said it pretty much how we did as well. Life of Brian says, I called him Brian. Sorry, Dave. It was a filler, but filler I really enjoyed. And then straight away underneath, I think my own expectations are to blame. I do enjoy it though.
Yeah,
and that's kind of where I'm at. Like it was a fine action scene. It was filmed well. It was shot well. The effects were there. But it's lacking that narrative drive, and that's what's frustrating to me. And that's where I'm coming down on this episode.
And Carl has took the words out of my head. Very Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Perfect way, because as we said of Clone Wars, you would have an unbelievable arc. You know, some of the best Star Wars you'll ever see would be in these arcs. And then you'd get, you know, Jar Jar Binks the Jedi. Jedi Bombad, isn't it?
Bombad Jedi, yeah.
And it's kind of what I was saying earlier. When it's what you said as well, you know, we've got 8 episodes, so you can't do it too much. And you know, 1, 2 is a real push. And I think this is lucky it's episode 1 now. Sorry, episode 2. Now, knowing next week that, you know, she's going to have to reunite with her husband, it's going to be weird. And he's apparently seen Mandalorians. I'm assuming it's the ferry episode because everyone thought that was this week because the description said they must escort a passenger across dangerous lands. Everyone assumed it was the boats. And obviously, we don't know what we're going to get next week because, to be fair to them, you know, speaking of the marketing we spoke last week, they used a lot of the Snow Planet, and you've been spot on with your prediction that they'll use most footage by the end of episodes 3 and 4, and we're certainly heading there because I remember a lot of the Snow Planet, and obviously you mentioned the broken engine. I guess that'll be the beginning of next week. They'll just arrive at the station, the planet, and just get on with it. So there is that. Got to bring it back to Baby Yoda because you mentioned how sadistic it was. The bit that creeped me out was the end when he turns his head, and I don't know if the mom knows he's eaten any of the kids yet because I don't know if she counts.
Think she would have counted? Yeah, I was going to say, as a mother, you think she would count them?
She just pulls it back closer to her, and it's this sadistic. Does he like laugh or smile? I've only seen it once so far, but he turns his head, and then he's got one and eats another, and it's so funny, it's so cute, and it is so terrifying. And I think that's what sold it for me, was that he is this sadistic child that can't be left alone for many reasons. And again, he's so cute whenever Mandalorian picks him up and he makes noises, or when he cried for the first time. We heard him crying. Yeah, and it was, like I said, you're right with the concept. It was a weird alien. I'm fine with it to a point. Hopefully this doesn't become a 3-episode arc where we've got a transporter for too many.
Right.
I hope it's next week and done. I'm sure it will be because you know, we need to bring in, you know, we've got the overarching plot. You know, we had the bounty hunters coming for Baby Yoda, which is great because at least we know there is still something out there. And I'm wondering if there's a bit of backstory to begin. So I'm going to kind of wrap this up by when the X-Wing pilots come at the end. You know, they say, you know, this mumbo jumbo, oh, you're wanted on 3 planets, you've got 3 bounties, blah, blah, blah. But they said something like, we're basically letting you go because you rescued this prisoner. And they read out a code. Now, I don't know if I've misinterpreted this. I don't think they mean Baby Yoda. I think he must have done something in his past that was morally well in the right. And I know that the whole arc of The Mandalorian has been this bounty hunter that's basically become a father to this child. And season 1, certainly the filler ones, was seeing how he's changed, you know, leaving them alive at the end of 6, stuff like that. And it's kind of wondering, we kind of spoke, I think, off air a couple of times where I said that we love the backstory we got for Mando when he was a kid. But are we going to get any other backstory type things to help build him? Because I don't want it, I don't want it to be, oh, he was raised when he was 8. I'm sure we will get a lot more details. But it just kind of, maybe I'm over reading something, but I was curious that they would let him go because he did something good where they're morally in the right. So, you know what, we're just going to let you go. So I'm curious, again, whether it's intentional or not. I like the backstory type stuff. You know, I've always said to you, I'm not one that reads the books. I used to read the odd comic, and it's good that they do those formats, especially for the people that read them. But it's so much visually more important to get those backstory. Not to harp on 9 because we kind of don't want to discuss it, but it's when they started telling you stuff about 9 in the books that came out before, and it's like, well, this is something that should have been addressed in the film. Why are we having to read about it later on? And I don't like things like that. So if they are going to keep hinting at more Mando backstory, I'm all for it, because there's some really interesting stuff there, which I think we're going to develop.
Yeah, they read off his exploits, don't they? And I was trying to piece some together. I was like, did we see those in season 1, or is this something else? I never even thought about that, getting more flashbacks. I thought, they told the tragic story of his parents being killed, why he hates droids. It did quite a lot of stuff, that backstory, him being rescued by the bounty hunters and growing up with them. I didn't think there was much more to tell with that. I like the element of mystery to the character. I think if you explain too much, then you run the risk of taking away that enigma of the character. There was one other moment of convenience that I wanted to talk about at the end of the episode. Maybe I missed something. I always do 2 watches of these episodes, as I said, but this one, I'm not sure if I really need to or want to. We see him patching up the shit. It's right before it's when Baby Yoda's trying to signal to him that the Toad Lady's gone in to have like a nice dunk in the hot tub. Freudian slip. But he's like fixing the ship, and he's like welding stuff together, and it doesn't look like it's finished. It looks like he's got a long way to go on it. He needs to try and get on it. But when they run back to the ship after the spiders, it seems to fly fine. I was under the impression that it still wasn't fixed and he was grounded there, so that kind of threw me for a bit. But we see them flying away at the end. They're in space now. If I remember right, in the trailer, there was a shot of one of the engines kind of disrupted, and it looks like it was crashing, or it was it wasn't flying great. I'm wondering if that's going to be the beginning of the next episode, or if something happens in space. We saw that the screen of the ship had been like punctured by the spider, but this looks like it's one of the engines. So I don't know if there's going to be something that happens, like an altercation in space again, and then he's going to crash onto this water planet. I could probably analyze the trailer and try and see if it's a water planet or whatever where he goes to. I think that's definitely our next episode. But then I'm also thinking back to the shot of the stormtroopers on the speeder bike that look like they come down some kind of like snowy bank or like gravelly bank. So I mean, he flies away from this planet, so it's not like he's going to go back to it. I think that's probably going to be our episode 4 and end on like a big. Maybe we'll get introduced to. There's that shot where he meets up with Cara Dune and Carl Weathers' character again. Maybe that's where the stormtroopers come back again. So I think definitely next week is going to be the water planet, and then I think episode 4 is probably going to be the one where we're reintroduced to Cara and Carl, because at that point we'll be halfway through the series, and we need to go back to these characters that have been established. They really need to sort out the villain thing. I need a lot more with Moff Gideon. This time we got our introduction to him at the end. We got the tease with the Darksaber. We need to start seeing some of that stuff come into this series. But other than that, if I'm going to go into final thoughts on this episode, we've basically been on repeat saying it. It was fine. I always look forward to it every week. As I say, it's like a nice thing to watch at the end of the week. And it's nice being back in the Star Wars universe, but I do kind of share Carl's frustration from his comment earlier, where I do want to see the plot kick in. It's great having these sort of like random disconnected episodes where they're in an adventure, but wouldn't it be great to have those moments of adventure that are actually tied into the plot? And it might be. So maybe this is going to be a thing that when I think our conversation after the final episode is done, we can also sort of look back on the series as a whole, as a complete story, as this next sort of big chapter to the Mandalorian franchise and story, and really review it as a whole from chapter 9 onwards. But as it is, because we don't know, I'm not angry about this episode. It's not like an episode 5 or an episode 6 from season 1 job where I actively hated those episodes. There's some new cool stuff in there. I like the spiders. The special effects and action were second to none. They looked absolutely fantastic. It's plodding a little bit. It's like I want to see that urgency in the narrative come back again.
Yeah, and I think my last thing's kind of echoing that, and it's bringing up again last year, season 1. We had a great episode 1. I know you're a much bigger fan of episode 2 than I am. It has grown on me a lot over the year. Episode 3 was that Kickstarter. He's took the baby, he's taken him for himself, he's betraying the Empire to a point, and that's kickstarting ultimately the series, which kind of stagnated a little bit. So I'm really hoping that if we're going to get this, he's seen other Mandos, I hope it is outright other Mandos he's seen. We know that we're going to get Katie Sackhoff at some point. We know we're going to get Ahsoka coming at some point. There are these people coming in, and we all think Ahsoka's episode 5. I think most people are fully anticipating that now. So I'm curious to see if episode 3 is going to lead into perhaps meeting some people, because wrestling fan Sasha Banks' character is, we think, in the water episode, because it looks like the same planet, the stuff around it, and some people who've done their searching, you can see someone with an incubator on their back as well. So I'm really hoping for the story's sake, for pushing this forward, that next week we have plot. I think we will. And then I can look back at episode 2 and it's like, fine, that was like a fun little thing between this and that. But hopefully it's not a case of, in a week's time, me and you are sat here again saying, so we still don't know where we're heading, which is the one thing it really can't afford to do, because we kind of gave it not a free ride in season 1, but season 1's that it's a new series, you're introducing new things, so you can get away with 1 or 2 things here and there. But season 2 is when you really, it's that middle chapter. Obviously, we don't know season 3 is the final season, but I don't think they're going to be going up to chapter 32. I think of TV. What's the average TV series in America? 22 episodes, 24 chapters. No issue with me. So I'm intrigued. I'm optimistic for next week. Really optimistic. But yeah, I'm excited to see what we get, because this was fine, and that's the word. Probably the best word we can use for this one.
Fine, yeah, solid 5 out of 10 for me. Just middle of the road. Before we finish, though, we do have some clarification. You mentioned about the prisoner and everything. Dave says it's the guy Matt Lanter played during that he tried to save on the prison ship, the prison episode from episode 6. I've only watched that episode once, and I'm probably not going to go back to it. So whatever information was told in that, I'm just going to take your guys' word for it that that's what it was. But maybe there is some room where they could go more into his backstory and some of the things that he's done. But yeah, I think we've pretty much said everything that we can on this episode. So one more time over to the socials. We want to hear from you guys. Comment below. Let us know what you thought of not just this episode of The Mandalorian, but the first one, and your hopes and speculation for the series as it continues. We're very, very close to another subscriber goal, so we would appreciate it if you can share it around and get people to subscribe to it. That'd be great. And not just for Mandalorian, although we will be going live every Friday at 10 p.m. UK time for our reviews on The Mandalorian. We also have a lot of other shows. We have ones on Tuesdays, and as George mentioned at the beginning, Battle of the Brackets this Sunday. Best place to find out information about that is on our socials. So if you go to Facebook at Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy, and if you'd like to pick up any merch, you can go to the TeePublic link in the description down below. Yeah, not much to talk about this episode. Hopefully next week has more we can dissect and go into. But once again, thank you to everyone who tuned in today, and we will see you on Sunday for another episode of Battle of the Brackets. Take care, everyone.